For decades, when you heard the name Jeffrey Epstein, it meant one thing: immense wealth, a network that reached into the highest, most powerful circles in the world. But that was just the surface. Behind that facade was a much darker reality, a story of systematic abuse and a sophisticated sex trafficking ring that preyed on the most vulnerable.
And this quote right here from survivor Virginia Giuffre, it just hits you, right? Because it gets right to the heart of the story. This wasn't just the crime of one man. This was a whole operation that serviced and was protected by some of the most powerful people on the planet.
So that's the big question we're going to tackle here, right? How was this even possible? How did a predatory network like this operate right out in the open for years and years, shielded by so much power and influence? Well, let's dive in and break it down. So to really get a grip on how he got away with it for so long, you have to look at the two completely different worlds he lived in. There was the public billionaire, and then there was the private predator. And the contrast between the two is just staggering. To the outside world, this guy projected an image of being totally untouchable. He had a private island down in the U.S. Virgin Islands, a huge mansion in Manhattan, and a fleet of private jets, including a Boeing 727 that got the infamous nickname the Lolita Express. And his backstory? It's pretty wild. Epstein was actually a college dropout who somehow landed a job as a math teacher at the elite Dalton School in New York. But he didn't stay there long. He used connections with the wealthy parents of his students to jump into high finance, and eventually he was managing fortunes for the super rich and became a real power broker in his own right. Okay, so that's the shiny public image, but behind all that glamour, well, that's where you find this incredibly organized and frankly horrifying system of exploitation.
This wasn't random at all. It was a calculated, predatory machine. And his method? It was just chillingly consistent. First, he and his associates, like his partner Ghislaine Maxwell, would target vulnerable young women, often teenagers from poor communities. Then they'd lure them in with promises of money or a better life. Once they were isolated, the abuse would start. And the final, just cruel twist? Victims were often forced into recruiting other girls, turning them into unwilling cogs in this sick pyramid scheme. And you have to understand, that deception was everything. Just listen to the words of Courtney Wild.
She was only 14 when she was recruited.
She thought she was going to make $200 for giving a massage. The reality, of course, was a complete nightmare.
And this right here, this contrast, just lays the power imbalance bare. Courtney was living in a trailer park in West Palm Beach. Epstein's mansion was just 12 kilometers away.
But it might as well have been another planet, 256. He was preying on girls for whom a couple $100 seemed like a fortune, 301. And we're not talking about a small operation, 303. The sheer scale of this pyramid is it's horrifying, 307. As one victim testified, she figured she brought him at a minimum 50 to 70 other girls, 312. He demanded a constant supply, with some survivors saying he wanted at least 3 different girls a day. So you've got to ask yourself, how in the world did this go on for so long? Well, a huge part of the answer lies in the company he kept. The powerful people who surrounded him gave him this veneer of legitimacy, and a lot of people believe a shield from ever being held accountable. The list of people he hung out with, it's like a who's who of the global elite. He was socializing with Donald Trump back in the 90s. He was photographed with the UK's Prince Andrew. And the flight logs from his private jet? They show former President Bill Clinton took multiple trips between 2002 and 2003. But why? What was the point of trafficking girls to these powerful men? According to Virginia Giuffre, it was all about one thing: blackmail. She believes that by getting compromising material on his guests, Epstein made sure they'd stay loyal and, more importantly, stay quiet.
It was leverage he could use if he ever needed it.
Of all his connections, though, none has gotten more intense scrutiny than his friendship with Prince Andrew. And it all kind of boils down to this one infamous photograph from 2001. There's the prince with his arm around Virginia Giuffre, who was just 17 years old. And right there in the background, Ghislaine Maxwell. So in 2019, Prince Andrew does this interview with the BBC. It was a total disaster. And he flat out denies the allegations. He claims he has absolutely no memory of the photo ever being taken, and he even suggested it might be fake. But Virginia Giuffre's story has never, ever changed. Her response was immediate and crystal clear. She insists the photo is 100% real, it's been verified, and it was taken right before he sexually abused her for the very first time. Okay, so this leads us to one of the most enraging parts of the story, a massive failure of the justice system. Back in 2008, authorities in Florida had a real chance to stop him for good. But instead, they cut a deal that, once it came to light, was almost impossible to believe. Look, with testimony from more than 40 victims in Florida alone, Epstein was staring down federal charges that could have put him in prison for life. I mean, forever. He could have been locked away, and this would have been over. But that is not at all what happened. Instead of life behind bars, he served just 13 months. And a big chunk of that was on work release from a county jail. So let's just break down the terms of this deal, because they are just unbelievable. He was allowed out on work release 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. But here's the most shocking part. The agreement gave federal immunity, not just to Epstein, but to all of his alleged co-conspirators, known and unknown. And the final insult? The whole deal was kept completely secret from his victims. So that sweetheart deal, as it came to be known, basically gave him a green light to continue his abuse for another decade. But in 2019, the law finally seemed to be catching up with him, which led to a final chapter that left way more questions than answers. Okay, so fast forward to July 6, 2019. Epstein gets arrested again, this time on federal sex trafficking charges in New York. The judge denies bail, calling him a flight risk. But then, just over a month later, on August 10th, he's found dead in his jail cell.
The official cause was ruled a suicide, but the circumstances were just bizarre. Malfunctioning cameras, guards who were supposedly asleep, it all fueled this intense speculation that has never really gone away. And just like that, with his death, the criminal case against him just disappeared. And it left this trail of huge, unanswered questions. What secrets died with him? Who exactly were those powerful co-conspirators that were protected by that 2008 deal? And maybe the biggest question of all, why did the system fail his victims so badly for so long? So this all leaves us with one final and really critical question. Epstein's dead. His main accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, is in prison, but the web he spun was vast. So will the powerful people in his orbit, the guests on his island, the names in his little black book, will they ever really be held accountable? That right there remains the unfinished business of one of the darkest scandals of our time.